Black Rock Desert, High Rock Canyon, Emigrant Trails National Conservation Area. Not only is the name a little unwieldy, but it describes an extremely remote area roughly the size of Rhode Island. Due to the enormous size of the name of this area, I will simply refer to it as the area and employ some other subtle clues to ensure referential clarity. So, first, a quick introduction to where the area is, with a few reference points. This map encompasses a region about 340 miles wide. Reno, Nevada is the closest population center and the largest on this map, about 150 miles to the south. The population of Reno metropolitan area is about 500,000. Redding is about 100,000. The Medford area of southern Oregon is about 250,000. While Lakeview boasts a population of just over 2,000 people. Winnemucca has between 8,000 and 9,000 inhabitants. Approaching from Reno, Gerlach is the last opportunity for services before launching into the wilderness. Gerlach was a watering stop on the Western Pacific Railroad. In 1906, the Western Pacific Railroad main line passed through Gerlach on its way from Oakland, California to Salt Lake City and points east. Its population reached a peak in the 1950s with over 1,000 residents. Today, the greater metropolitan area of Gerlach and Empire supports a population of around 250 people. Washoe County Road 34 connects Gerlach with Cedarville, 103 miles of mostly dirt road to the north-northwest. Our first stop is the George W. Lund Petrified Forest, 43 miles north of Gerlach on Washoe County Road 34. Named in honor of George Lund in 1964, he had lobbied for the protection of this site after watching bulldozers and steam shovels load tons of petrified logs onto flatbed trailers and hauled away for commercial exploitation. Of course, by the time protections were enacted, most of that material had been removed. Analysis of the remaining giant stumps suggests trees were ancient relatives of today's giant sequoia. One relatively large log has been preserved in a chain-link cage. One log bears a scar suspiciously similar to the work of today's pileated woodpecker. This next section is difficult to label. The title here is the GPS coordinates where the road intersects Washoe County Road 34. We pass Denio Camp as we follow this unmarked vehicular trail that crosses over from Road 34 to other unmaintained trails in the High Rock Lake Basin. We pass south of High Rock Canyon and north of Little High Rock Canyon, skirting around the north flanks of Mahogany Mountain, reaching an elevation of 6,000 feet before dropping to about 5,000 feet around High Rock Lake. On either side of the road is protected wilderness area with a narrow buffer zone a few hundred feet wide to allow passage on the road. These protected areas were created by the Black Rock Desert High Rock Canyon Emigrant Trails National Conservation Area Act of the year 2000. The act protects 880,000 acres, a little over 1,000 square miles, and as previously mentioned, compares in size to the state of Rhode Island. As the name suggests, there are three distinct aspects to the area. In the south is the Black Rock Desert, a large, dry alkaline lake bed. In the north are wilderness areas surrounding High Rock Canyon, and overlaying the entire area is a network of emigrant trails used in the mid to late 1800s by pioneer wagon trains carrying hopeful immigrants to the rich farmlands of western Oregon or the gold fields of Northern California. The higher elevation allows for a very nice late spring wildflower show. Surprisingly, this isolated desert region has served as a crossroads for centuries. Even today, people still come to this region for highly varied activities. Long occupied by Native Americans, Western influence began having an impact on the region by the mid-1800s. John C. Fremont mapped the interior of the West in 5 expeditions between 1842 and 1854. Pioneers began to traverse the Oregon Trail in the 1840s. As traffic increased, other trails distributed the settlers up and down the West Coast, one of these being the Applegate Trail. The area was established to protect the settings of the historic trails. It is possible to experience the same landscape that the wagon trains crossed in the 19th century. Today, the Black Rock Playa supports a number of diverse activities. Andy Green holds the current land speed record, breaking the sound barrier on the dry lake bed at 753 miles per hour in 1997. The first amateur rocket to reach space launched from the Black Rock Desert in 2004. The population at Burning Man has exceeded 50,000 people every year since 2010, reaching 72,000 in 2025. Interestingly enough, despite the volume of people passing through, very few have stayed for any significant period of time. So by now I think you get the idea. Lots going on here over the centuries, pretty much nothing on a day-to-day basis. We first encountered the Emigrant trails a little north of High Rock Lake, near Fly Canyon. The trails came up the east side of the mountains and turned west and eventually slightly south at Fly Canyon before turning into High Rock Canyon. Fly Canyon carries the outflow from High Rock Lake, which today is nothing more than a lot of hot air. During wetter periods a few thousand years ago, the stream flowed with enough force to carve this little canyon. Within the canyon are the potholes, carved by the force of water swirling down the narrow channel. Some of the potholes are very deep and filled with water at times. To study the potholes in detail, it is necessary to hike within the canyon, a task beyond my experience rating. Some can be viewed from the canyon edge. There is a marker along the road that points to an interesting section of the canyon. It's a bit of a myth that the trail was a single track from end to end. As conditions changed and other individuals examined the route, numerous detours and shortcuts evolved. Sometimes a rough section of trail could be exchanged for a steeper section. In fact, the Applegate Trail itself was initially conceived as an option to avoid the treacherous Columbia River Gorge in exchange for miles of rough road through the desert. In this portion of the trail, however, everything eventually funneled into the High Rock Canyon. The longest segment of our adventure through the area takes us through High Rock Canyon. "50 miles or so takes us from the now dry High Rock Lake to the California border through 20 miles of rugged canyon and across miles of high desert prairie. High Rock Canyon is closed seasonally from late winter to mid-spring. According to the BLM website, the intent of the closure is to prevent damage to the Emigrant Trail and reduce human disturbance during seasonal lambing bighorn sheep and nesting raptors. The namesake high rocks make for an imposing entrance to the canyon. Swallows' nests give a sense of scale to the swirling lava exposed in the walls. Immigrants passing through added their own touch to the canyon walls, inscribing their names and dates of passage. A little is known of George N. Jackwith from Wisconsin, who lived in California and Oregon for a while. But many of the names once carved in stone are now long forgotten, in spite of the personal sacrifice required to survive the nearly 2,000-mile journey to get to this point. The road through the canyon is a test of patience and endurance. High clearance is required. Remember, we are now driving on the same primitive trail the immigrants used 150 years ago, using wagons with wheels 4 to 5.5 feet in diameter, with distinct clearance advantages. The Oregon Trail started out as a route established by trappers and fur traders as early as 1811 and only passable on horseback. By the early 1840s, wagon trails had been cleared sufficiently for the Great Migration to begin. Even at its best, the trail was an arduous journey. The death rate was 10% from disease, accidents, and gunshot wounds. In 1843, the Applegate family lost 2 children while attempting to travel down the Columbia River to reach the Willamette Valley. In 1846, the Oregon Provisional Legislature allowed the Applegates to attempt to find a more southerly route to Oregon, avoiding the hazards of the Columbia Gorge. The Applegate Trail turns south from Fort Hall in Idaho, following the Humboldt River into the Great Basin. As the river begins to disappear into the sand, the trail turns north and west through the Black Rock Desert, eventually entering High Rock Canyon. From there, it crossed even more rocky volcanic terrain through northern California. Along this route, various trails split off, heading for the California Gold Rush. The Applegate Trail continued on, eventually reaching the Klamath Falls area, the Rogue Valley with its goldfields near Jacksonville, and on north on a route paralleled today by Highway 99 and Interstate 5 through Roseburg and on into the southern end of the Willamette Valley. Yellow Rock Canyon is, well, yellow. Once you reach the Fox Homestead Garage, you are expecting to be near the end of the canyon. The road does improve some at this point, but you're only about halfway, with at least one more stream crossing to go. There was one more difficult section of wagon road that is now bypassed by a more modern route, and suddenly we were up on top. Surprise Valley is surprisingly beautiful, at least in the spring. And no, not the hot spring, which is pretty nice and very hot. I'm guessing it was also a surprise when the side of this mountain broke loose and slid toward the valley back in prehistoric times. The valley is 50 miles long and bordered on the west by the Warner Mountains, with peaks approaching 10,000 feet. Further to the north, the ridgeline lowers enough to allow the Applegate and Lassen trails to cross at an elevation of around 6,000 feet at Fandango Pass. Legend has it the Emigrant celebrated this crossing by dancing the Fandango, believing they had just reached the crest of the Sierra Nevada and it was all downhill from here. The sad disappointment developed over the next few weeks and hundreds of miles more before reaching the Willamette Valley in Oregon. Beautiful wildflowers bloom along the trail to the pass, and at least a few miles down the Fandango Valley were maybe a little easier than the trials of the Black Rock Desert and High Rock Canyon. And views like this are probably little changed from what the Emigrant saw more than 150 years ago. And the skies are still nearly as dark.